The darkness of space broke apart like shattered glass as 9,000 warships tore through the fabric of reality. The Imperial Armada had arrived at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, their massive vessels blocking out the distant stars. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his viewing screen. "Scan complete," his sensor officer reported. "One inhabited world, third planet from the star, population approximately 8 billion, technology level primitive. They have basic space flight capability limited to their moon, no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, no fleet presence." Allowed himself a thin smile. In his 300 years of service to the Empire, he had conquered 47 worlds. Some had fought back with courage, others had surrendered immediately, but none had ever posed a real threat to the Armada. This world would be no different. "Begin broadcasting surrender demands in all detected languages," he ordered. "Give them the standard terms. Complete submission to the Empire. All resources become Imperial property. The population will serve as labor units. Resistance means extinction." The communications officer nodded and began the transmission, clasped his four-fingered hands behind his back and watched the blue world with contempt. Such a small thing, such weak creatures living upon it. They had no idea what was coming for them. 12,000 kilometers beneath the surface of Earth, in a bunker carved from solid rock under Mount, Admiral received the alert on her command console. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many things in her 62 years of life. For the last 30 of those years, she had commanded Earth's true defense network, the one that nobody in the galaxy knew existed. "Contact confirmed," said Captain, her senior sensor operator. He was young, barely 30, but he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. His fingers moved across the quantum display with practiced ease. 9,217 warships, Imperial configuration. They match our database exactly. Nodded slowly. Weapon systems. Plasma cannons, fusion torpedoes, kinetic bombardment platforms. Standard galactic military technology, approximately 400 years behind our current capabilities. Fleet formation. Standard conquest pattern. Main battle line in the center, support vessels on the flanks, landing craft carriers in the rear. They expect no resistance. Stood and walked to the massive display wall that showed Earth's solar system in perfect detail. Red dots marked the enemy fleet, clustered together near the orbit of Neptune. They were moving slowly, confidently, taking their time. Why would they hurry? They believed they were attacking primitives. "Has our masking field held?" she asked. "Completely," confirmed. "They see exactly what we want them to see. A primitive civilization with chemical rockets and basic electronics. They have no idea about our orbital ring, our lunar installations, or our deep space monitoring network. To them, we are cattle waiting to be collected." Returned to her command chair and sat down. On a smaller screen beside her, she watched the surrender demand play out. The alien commander appeared on the broadcast, tall and gray-skinned, with sharp teeth and cruel eyes. He spoke of submission and service, of the honor of joining the great empire. He spoke of the consequences of resistance. "Patch me through to all defense stations," said quietly. "Encryption level maximum." "Channel open, Admiral." She took a breath. This was the moment that humanity had prepared for across 3 centuries. Every secret project, every hidden installation, every weapon designed in darkness and built in silence. It had all led to this single point in time. "All stations, this is Admiral. The day we have waited for has arrived. An alien armada has entered our system with hostile intent. They believe we are weak. They believe we are primitive. They believe they will conquer us as they have conquered hundreds of worlds before us." She paused, looking at the red dots on her display. "They are wrong. For 300 years we have watched the galaxy. We have learned its secrets. We have built weapons that these invaders cannot imagine. We have done this not because we wanted war, but because we understood that in a universe of predators, the only safety lies in strength. Around the solar system, hidden stations received her words. On the dark side of the moon, Lieutenant gripped the controls of her weapon platform, her heart beating fast but her hands perfectly steady. In the orbital ring that encircled Earth, invisible to all sensors except humanity's own, Commander powered up the silence engines that would soon erase matter from existence. On Mars, on Europa, on Titan, and in the cold depths of the outer system, thousands of officers and soldiers listened to their admiral speak. Today we reveal ourselves, continued. Today we show the galaxy what humanity has become, not because we seek conquest, but because we will never be conquered. Not because we want war, but because we will never be slaves. Follow your orders, trust your training, and know that when this day ends, the universe will understand one simple truth: Earth is not prey. She closed the channel and turned to time until the enemy reaches optimal engagement range. 4 hours, 17 minutes, Admiral. Good, let them come closer. Let them believe their victory is certain. She settled back in her chair, watching the red dots creep forward through the darkness. We have waited 300 years. We can wait a few more hours. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Fleet Commander reviewed the planetary scan data with growing boredom. The primitive world had not responded to his surrender demand. They were probably still trying to understand what was happening. Perhaps their simple leaders were arguing among themselves about what to do. It did not matter. In a few hours, his landing craft would descend upon their cities, and the conquest would begin. Commander, his sensor officer said, I am detecting some unusual readings from the planet's moon. Barely glanced at the report. Unusual how? I am not certain. Brief energy fluctuations. They disappeared before I could get a clear scan. Probably natural phenomena. These primitive systems often have unstable magnetic fields. Waved his hand dismissively. Continue the approach. Launch fighter screens for planetary suppression. I want the capital cities identified and targeted for the first wave of landings. Yes, Commander. The Armada moved forward, 9,000 warships advancing toward a world that seemed utterly defenseless. None of them noticed the subtle changes in the space around them. None of them detected the quantum locks that were already marking their positions. None of them saw the darkness between the stars begin to shift and move. Admiral watched them come, and she waited 312 years before the Armada arrived. A young scientist named made a discovery that changed everything. She was working at a small research station in the mountains, studying strange signals that her radio telescope had detected from deep space. At first, she thought they were natural. Then she realized they were artificial. And then she understood what they meant. The signals were communications between starships, alien starships, hundreds of them traveling through a region of space only 40 light-years from Earth. Spent 3 months decoding the transmissions, working alone because she was afraid to tell anyone what she had found. When she finally understood the messages, her fear grew even greater. The aliens were discussing a conquest. A planet called had refused to submit to something called the Empire, and now the Imperial fleet was reducing its cities to ash. The transmissions included reports of billions dead. They included orders to enslave the survivors. They included casual discussions about which resources would be most valuable to extract from the burning world. Brought her findings to the world government. At first, no one believed her. Then they heard data and belief gave way to terror. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and the universe was not friendly. The Global Council met in secret for 3 months. Some wanted to send messages of peace, to reach out and hope for the best. Others wanted to build weapons and prepare for war. But it was herself who proposed the third option, the one that would shape humanity's future for the next 3 centuries. We are weak, she told the council. We have no way to defend ourselves against the technology we have observed. If we reveal ourselves, we will be conquered or destroyed. If we try to build weapons openly, we will be detected and attacked before we are ready. There is only one path that gives us a chance to survive." She laid out her plan on the table. They called it the Veil Protocol. Humanity would hide, not just physically but technologically. They would continue to broadcast primitive radio signals into space, showing the galaxy a species that had barely reached its own moon. Meanwhile, beneath that mask of weakness, they would build something else entirely. They would study the aliens from the shadows. They would learn their technology and then surpass it. They would become strong enough that no empire could threaten them. But they would do all of this in absolute secrecy. No alien eye would ever see the truth until humanity chose to reveal it. The Council approved the Veil Protocol by unanimous vote, and the greatest deception in history began. Over the next 50 years, humanity transformed itself while appearing to remain the same. Cities continued to grow on the surface, filled with people living ordinary lives. But beneath those cities, deep underground, new cities were being built. Cities of advanced technology, of quantum computers and fusion reactors, of research facilities dedicated to understanding and exceeding alien science. General Menu took command of the Strategic Defense Initiative when he was only 35 years old. He was the third person to hold the position, following a line of commanders who had each dedicated their lives to Earth's secret protection. Under his leadership, humanity developed weapons that would have seemed like magic to the alien empires that ruled the stars. The dimensional anchor was the first breakthrough. It could lock any object in place, freezing it in spacetime regardless of its momentum or power. A starship caught by a dimensional anchor could not move, could not fire its weapons, could not even send a distress signal. It was simply trapped, helpless, until the anchor was released. The gravity lance came next. It focused gravitational force into a beam so intense that it could crush a warship into a ball of compressed metal smaller than a human fist. The tests were conducted in the outer solar system, far from any alien sensors, and the results exceeded all expectations. But the most terrible weapon was the silence engine. Doctor led the team that developed it, working for 20 years on a device that could erase matter at the quantum level. The silence engine did not destroy its targets with heat or force. It simply made them stop existing. One moment a ship was there, and the next moment it was not. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where something had been. "We have become death," said quietly when the first test succeeded. "I hope we never have to use this." While the weapons were being built, others focused on intelligence. Probes were launched toward alien space, disguised as asteroids drifting through the void. They were equipped with quantum sensors that could detect and record everything while remaining completely invisible. Over 2 centuries, these probes mapped the entire galaxy and transmitted their findings back to Earth. Humanity learned the names and locations of over 400 alien civilizations. They learned which ones were peaceful and which ones were predators. They learned about the Empire, the largest and most aggressive power in the known galaxy, and they watched it conquer world after world without mercy. They also learned something that filled them with cold determination. Many of the conquered species had tried to fight back. Some had possessed advanced technology. Some had formed alliances. Some had even won temporary victories. But in the end, they always won, because they were willing to do whatever it took to achieve dominance. "We cannot simply match them," General Menu told the Defense Council. "If we are equal to them, they will wear us down through numbers and resources. We must be so far beyond them that resistance is impossible. We must be able to end any conflict before it begins." So humanity continued to build. The orbital ring around Earth was constructed in secret, its components assembled in underground factories and launched into space under cloaking fields that bent light around them. Defense platforms were placed throughout the solar system, hidden in asteroid fields and buried beneath the surfaces of moons. A fleet of warships was built, each one capable of destroying a battle group single-handedly. And through it all, the veil held. Earth continued to appear primitive to anyone watching from the stars. Radio signals leaked out into space, carrying television broadcasts and music, and the ordinary chatter of a species that seemed to have no idea what waited in the darkness beyond their world. When Admiral took command of the defense network, she inherited 3 centuries of preparation. She had studied every report from the probe network. She knew the Empire better than most did, and she knew with absolute certainty that someday they would come for Earth. "We have done everything we can to prepare," she told her senior officers on her first day in command. "The only question now is when we will have to use what we have built. I hope it will be long after I am gone, but I am ready if it happens tomorrow." It happened 30 years later, on an ordinary morning when the first sensor alerts began flashing across her display. The Imperial Armada had been detected at the edge of the solar system, 9,000 warships strong, coming to conquer a world they believed was defenseless. Looked at the alert and felt something she had not expected, not fear, not even excitement, just a quiet sadness that the peace was finally over. "Wake all stations," she ordered. "The Veil Protocol is ending. It is time for the galaxy to learn what we really are." 300 years of preparation, 300 years of hiding, 300 years of watching predators roam the stars and knowing that someday they would come hunting. That day had arrived, and humanity was ready. The Armada had entered the inner solar system. 9,000 warships moved in perfect formation, their commanders confident and calm. They had done this many times before. The conquest of a primitive world was routine work, almost boring in its predictability. Soon the landing craft would descend, the population would submit, and another world would join the Empire. Fleet Commander watched the blue planet grow larger on his display. It was beautiful, he had to admit. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. That would strip it of resources within a century, but for now it was pleasant to look at. "Launch the first wave of landing craft," he ordered. "Target the largest population centers. I want boots on the ground within 2 hours." 200 landing craft broke away from the carrier ships, descending toward Earth in a spreading formation. Each craft carried 500 soldiers, heavily armed and eager for conquest. They would secure the major cities, capture the leaders, and begin the process of breaking the population's will to resist. But as the landing craft entered the atmosphere, something strange happened. The cities below them were empty. "Commander," the lead pilot reported, confusion clear in his voice, "there are no people here. The buildings are intact, but the streets are abandoned. No vehicles, no crowds, nothing." Frowned, "Check your sensors. 8 billion people do not simply disappear." "Sensors confirm, Commander. All major cities are vacant. There are some life signs in rural areas, but the urban centers are completely empty." On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest felt the first cold touch of unease. This was wrong. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Populations fled from invading armies, yes, but they fled to somewhere. They did not simply vanish. "Scan the planet again," he ordered. "Full spectrum analysis, find out where they went." The scan took only seconds, but what it revealed made its blood run cold. "Commander," the sensor officer said, his voice trembling, "I am detecting massive underground structures beneath every major continent. They extend down for kilometers. The population, the entire population is underground." Stared at the display. Vast underground cities, hidden from all scans, filled with billions of humans who had apparently evacuated the surface before the Armada arrived. But how? How had they known to hide? How had they built such enormous shelters without being detected? Unless... The thought formed slowly in his mind, terrible and impossible. Unless they had known the Armada was coming, unless they had prepared, unless everything they thought they knew about this world was wrong. All ships barked into his communicator, raise shields to maximum, weapons ready, something is. He never finished the sentence. In the bunker beneath Mount, Admiral watched the enemy fleet on her tactical display. They had finally realized something was wrong. She could almost feel the fear beginning to spread through their ranks. It was too late for them, of course. It had been too late from the moment they entered the solar system. "All stations report ready," Captain said. "Dimensional anchors locked on all targets. Silence engines charged and standing by." Nodded. For 300 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had built weapons of unimaginable power. They had trained thousands of officers to use them. They had run simulation after simulation, preparing for every possible scenario. And now, finally, it was time. "Initiate Protocol Sunrise," she said quietly. On the dark side of the moon, Lieutenant pressed the activation sequence for the dimensional anchors. The technology was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, using principles of physics that they did not even know existed. Invisible beams shot out from hidden platforms scattered throughout the solar system, each one locking onto a specific target. In an instant, every ship in the Armada was frozen in place. They could not move. They could not turn. They could not fire their weapons or activate their shields. They were simply stopped, held in the grip of forces they could not understand or resist. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest screamed orders that no one could follow. His ship would not respond. The controls were dead. Even the emergency systems refused to activate. He was trapped in a metal coffin, surrounded by the darkness of space, waiting for something terrible to happen. He did not have to wait long. Commander activated the silence engines from his station in Earth's orbital ring. The ring itself became visible for the first time, a massive structure of advanced technology that they had never detected. It circled the planet like a crown, beautiful and deadly, humming with power that description. The silence engines fired. Their beams were invisible, undetectable, traveling at speeds that made light seem slow. They struck the frozen ships, and the ships simply ceased to exist. The entire attack lasted 4.7 seconds. In those seconds, 9,000 warships vanished from reality. 12 million soldiers stopped existing. Centuries of imperial military power disappeared like a candle flame in a hurricane. There was no explosion, no debris field, no wreckage drifting through space. The ships were there, and then they were not. One ship remained. The Eternal Conquest, flagship of the fleet, hung alone in empty space where moments before an armada had floated. Fleet Commander stood on his bridge, staring at displays that showed nothing but void. His entire fleet was gone. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon, erased in less than 5 seconds. The flickered and a human face appeared. Admiral looked at with calm, measuring eyes. She spoke in perfect, without accent or hesitation. "Fleet Commander," she said, "I am Admiral of the Earth Defense Network. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your weapons are offline. Your ship remains only because we chose to spare it." Tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. He swallowed hard and forced the words out. "This is impossible. No species has weapons like this. You were primitives, our scans showed." "Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," interrupted. "We have been watching your empire for 300 years. We know everything about you. Your fleet composition, your tactics, your technology. We have had centuries to prepare for this day." "But why," whispered, "why hide if you had this power?" "Because power without wisdom destroys everything it touches. We watched your empire conquer and enslave hundreds of worlds. We saw what you did to species that opposed you. We decided that we would not announce ourselves until we were absolutely certain that no force in the galaxy could threaten us." Leaned forward, her eyes hard. "Today we have proven that certainty. Your invasion force is gone. Your empire will receive a message explaining exactly what happened here, and you, Commander, will deliver that message personally. You will tell them what you saw. You will tell them that Earth is not prey. You will tell them that if any ship ever enters our system again, we will do to you what we did to your fleet. Looked at the empty space where his armada had been. 12 million soldiers gone in seconds. 9,000 warships erased like they had never existed. And this woman, this human, spoke of destroying his entire with the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. He believed her. Looking into those steady eyes, he believed every word. "I will deliver your message," he said. Good nodded once. "Your navigation systems will be restored. You have enough fuel to reach space. Go, tell your emperor what happened here, and pray that he is wise enough to listen." The screen went dark. A moment later, the Eternal Conquest's engines came back online. Looked at his crew, saw the terror in their eyes, and knew it was mirrored in his own. "Set course for home," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." As the ship turned away from Earth, looked back at the blue planet one last time. It seemed so peaceful, so ordinary, just another world orbiting another star. But now he knew the truth. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone foolish enough to attack, and the Empire had walked straight into its jaws. The Eternal Conquest vanished into hyperspace, carrying a message that would change everything. The throne room of the Empire was a vast chamber of black stone and golden light, built to impress and intimidate all who entered. Emperor had ruled from this room for 200 years, watching his domain expand across the stars, crushing all who dared to oppose him. He had never known defeat. He had never felt fear. Both of those things changed when Fleet Commander delivered his report. The Emperor sat in silence as the recording played on the massive display screen. He watched his armada approach the primitive blue world. He watched the landing craft descend toward empty cities. He watched his sensor officer report the impossible underground structures. And then he watched 9,000 warships disappear in less than 5 seconds. No explosion, no battle, no chance to fight back, just existence and then nothing. When the recording ended, the throne room was silent. The Emperor's advisors stood frozen, afraid to speak, afraid to move. They had all seen conquests before. They had all witnessed the destruction of enemy fleets, but they had never seen anything like this. They had never imagined that anything like this was possible. "Play it again," commanded. They watched it 3 more times. Each viewing revealed the same impossible truth. The Imperial Armada, the most powerful military force in the known galaxy, had been erased by a species that was supposed to be primitive. A species that had been marked for easy conquest. A species that had been hiding its true nature for 300 years. How? The Emperor finally asked. How did they develop this technology without our knowledge? We have spies on 1,000 worlds. We monitor all advanced civilizations. How did these humans escape our attention? Admiral Commander of the Imperial Navy stepped forward. His scales were pale with shock, but his voice remained steady. "Majesty, according to Commander's report, the humans deliberately broadcast false signals to hide their true capabilities. They appeared primitive because they wanted to appear primitive. They have been watching us, studying us, preparing for us. For 300 years. Yes, Majesty. They detected our empire long ago and chose to hide rather than reveal themselves. They used that time to develop weapons far beyond anything we possess." Gripped the arms of his throne until his claws scraped against the metal. "And we walked into their trap like blind prey." "Yes, Majesty." The Emperor stood and walked to the great window that overlooked the capital city. Millions of lived below, going about their daily lives, unaware that their empire had just suffered its greatest defeat. Unaware that somewhere in the galaxy, a species existed that could destroy everything they had built. "What are their demands?" asked. His chief advisor, an elderly female named read from a data pad. The humans have transmitted a detailed message through Commander. They demand the complete withdrawal of all forces from 17 star systems. These systems contain developing civilizations that we have conquered over the past century. They want us to give up our conquests. Yes, Majesty. They also demand the release of all enslaved populations and the permanent demilitarization of a border zone between their space and ours. Turn from the window, and if we refuse. His voice dropped. They say they will do to our what they did to our fleet. The throne room fell silent again. Everyone present understood what that meant. In 4.7 seconds, the humans had erased 12 million soldiers and 9,000 warships. They had weapons that could make matter stop existing. If they turned those weapons on, the billions would die. The empire would end. Show me the rest of their message, commanded. The display screen activated, showing a recording sent from Earth. A human female appeared, dressed in simple clothes, standing in front of a star map that filled the wall behind her. She was called Doctor, according to the message header, and she spoke in perfect. Emperor, she began, by now you have seen what happened to your invasion fleet. You understand that we possess technology far beyond your own. You understand that we have the capability to destroy your civilization if we choose to do so. She paused, letting the words sink in. But destruction is not our goal. We did not hide for 3 centuries because we wanted to conquer the galaxy. We hid because we wanted to survive. We built these weapons not to attack, but to ensure that no one could ever attack us successfully. The star map behind her lit up, showing the locations of colonies, military bases, and trade routes. Red dots marked every significant installation in the empire. We know where you are, continued. We have known for a very long time. We have had centuries to plan how we would respond if you threatened us, but we do not want war. We want something else entirely. The map changed, showing the 17 star systems mentioned in the demands. Each one contained a planet with a native population, species that they had conquered and enslaved. These worlds were home to peaceful civilizations before your empire arrived. You conquered them because you could. You enslaved their people because it was profitable. You destroyed their cultures because it was convenient. His voice grew harder. We have watched you do this for 300 years. We have documented every atrocity, every massacre, every act of cruelty. And we have decided that it must stop. Not because we are morally superior. Our own history is filled with terrible mistakes. But because we now have the power to make a choice, and we choose to use that power for protection rather than conquest. She stepped closer to the camera, her eyes intense. You have 1 standard year to comply with our demands. Withdraw from the 17 systems. Release the enslaved populations. Demilitarize the border zone. If you do these things, there will be peace between us. Your empire will continue to exist, and we will not interfere with your internal affairs. Her expression grew cold. If you refuse, or if you attempt to attack us again, we will consider it an act of war. And you have already seen how quickly we can end a war. The recording ended. Emperor stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then turned to his advisors. Can we fight them? Admiral shook his head slowly. Majesty, they erased our entire invasion fleet in seconds. Our most advanced weapons would be useless against them. Even if we gathered every ship in the Empire, we could not hope to defeat enemies who can simply make our forces stop existing. Then we negotiate. We surrender to the demands of these insects. I do not believe we have a choice, Majesty. If we refuse, they will destroy us. If we fight, they will destroy us. If we comply, at least the Empire survives. Sat back down on his throne, feeling old for the first time in his long life. He had built an empire on strength and conquest. He had believed that power was everything, that the strong ruled and the weak served. Now he had encountered a species that was stronger than anything he had ever imagined, and he was the one who had to submit. "How did this happen?" he asked quietly. "How did we miss them?" Stepped forward. "Majesty, the humans were clever. They showed us exactly what we expected to see. A primitive world, easy prey, not worth careful study. We did not investigate closely because we assumed we already knew everything we needed to know. We were arrogant." "Yes, Majesty, we saw what we wanted to see, and now we must face the consequences." Closed his eyes. Somewhere out there on a small blue world, a species that had been hiding in plain sight was waiting for his answer. They had weapons that could end his civilization in moments. They had intelligence networks that knew every secret of his empire. And they had patience, 300 years of patient waiting, building, preparing. He had always believed that they were the apex predators of the galaxy. He had been wrong. "Send the response," he said finally. "Tell them we accept their terms. Begin the withdrawal immediately." The advisors bowed and hurried to carry out his orders. Remained on his throne, alone in the vast chamber, thinking about the future. The Empire would survive, but it would never be the same. The galaxy would learn what had happened here, and everything would change. The humans had won without firing a shot. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying thing of all. 1 year had passed since the Armada vanished at the edge of Earth's solar system. In that time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The news spread slowly at first, then faster and faster as the implications became clear. The great empire, conqueror of 900 star systems, had been humiliated by a species no one had ever heard of. A species that had been hiding in plain sight, pretending to be primitive while building weapons that made galactic technology look like children's toys. Admiral watched the changes unfold from her office in the underground command center. She had not slept well since the attack, haunted by dreams of the moment when 9,000 ships stopped existing. She had given the order. She had ended 12 million lives in less than 5 seconds. The necessity did not make it easier to bear. Captain entered with the morning report. They have completed their withdrawal from the 17th system. All enslaved populations have been released. The border zone is demilitarized. Nodded slowly, they with everything. Everything. Their emperor is apparently quite motivated to avoid further conflict. Set a data pad on her desk. Also, we have received 342 diplomatic requests from other species. They all want to establish relations with Earth. 342. Everyone wants to be friends with the civilization that made the run away. Smiled slightly, though there was no joy in it. Send the requests to Ambassador. She will decide which ones to prioritize. In a space station orbiting a neutral world far from Earth, Ambassador was already overwhelmed with visitors. The station had been constructed by humanity in secret decades ago, waiting for the day when they would finally reveal themselves to the galaxy. Now it served as Earth's first open embassy, a place where representatives from dozens of species came seeking answers. They all asked the same questions. How had the humans hidden for so long? Why had they revealed themselves now? What did they want from the galaxy? Answered each delegation with the same careful honesty. We hid because we were afraid, she told a group of ambassadors from the Federation, a peaceful trading consortium. We saw how the galaxy treated the weak, and we decided that we would not be weak when we finally showed ourselves. But why reveal yourselves at all? Asked the lead ambassador. You could have remained hidden forever. No, said quietly. We could not. They found us because they were searching for new conquests. Eventually, others would have found us too. We chose to reveal ourselves on our own terms in a way that made clear we would not be easy prey. The 17 liberated worlds formed a coalition within months of gaining their freedom. They had lived under rule for generations, their cultures suppressed, their people enslaved. Now they were free, protected by a species that asked nothing in return except that they harm no one else. Doctor traveled to each of the liberated worlds, explaining humanity's philosophy to their new allies. "We do not want to rule you," she told the Council of, the world whose destruction had first alerted humanity to the existence. "We do not want tribute or submission. We want you to be free to develop on your own terms." "But why?" the leader asked. "You have the power to take anything you want. Why show mercy?" Thought for a long moment before answering. "Do you know why we call ourselves humanity? It comes from an old word in one of our languages. It means compassion, kindness, the quality of caring for others even when you do not have to." She looked out the window at the city, still bearing scars from the conquest. "Our history is full of times when we failed to live up to that name. We have done terrible things to each other, but we have also learned from those mistakes. We have learned that strength without compassion leads only to destruction. So you protect us out of compassion. We protect you because we can. Because if we have the power to prevent suffering and we do not use it, then what is the point of having power at all?" Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The surface cities filled with people again as the population emerged from the underground shelters. Children who had grown up knowing nothing but artificial sunlight saw real skis for the first time. Families reunited after years of separation. Admiral retired quietly, handing command of the defense network to Admiral, her chosen successor. She bought a small house in the Korean countryside, far from the bunkers and command centers where she had spent most of her life. She wanted peace. She wanted to forget the terrible mathematics of her decision for 7 seconds, 12 million dead. General Minyu visited her a month after her retirement. He was old now, white-haired and tired, one of the last survivors of the generation that had built Earth's secret defenses. They sat on her porch, watching the sun set over green hills, and spoke of things they had never allowed themselves to discuss during their years of service. "Do you regret it?" Minyu asked. "What we did?" Considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I wish they had never come. I wish we could have lived in peace forever." She paused. "But I do not regret protecting our world. I do not regret saving our people from conquest and slavery." 12 million lives. Yes, 12 million soldiers who came to enslave 8 billion innocents. I carry that weight. I will carry it until I die. But I made the only choice I could make. Minyu nodded slowly. "The galaxy is watching us now. They are afraid of us." "Good, let them be afraid. Fear will keep them from attacking us," smiled sadly. "But fear is not enough. We must show them who we really are. We must prove that our strength is not a threat to those who mean us no harm." Over the following years, humanity did exactly that. Trade agreements were signed with dozens of civilizations. Scientific knowledge was shared freely. Medical technology developed in secret was used to cure diseases on 100 worlds. Slowly, the fear began to fade, replaced by something else: respect and even gratitude. Fleet Commander, the sole survivor of the invasion fleet, lived out his days on a quiet moon at the edge of space. He had become something of a celebrity among his people, the commander who had witnessed the impossible and lived to tell about it. Visitors came from across the empire to hear his story. He always told them the same thing. "We thought we were gods," he would say, staring at the stars with haunted eyes. "We had conquered hundreds of worlds. We believed nothing could stand against us. Then we met something that had been watching us the whole time, waiting to see what kind of gods we would be." He would pause then, remembering the moment when his fleet vanished around him. "We failed the test. We showed them that we were predators, not protectors, and they responded with a warning we could not ignore, but they also gave us a second chance. They could have destroyed our empire, but they chose mercy instead. That is the difference between us and them. We conquered because we could. They showed mercy because they could." On Earth, the motto that had guided humanity through 3 centuries of shadow became public knowledge. Schools taught it to children. Leaders quoted it in speeches. It appeared on monuments and memorials across the planet. Walk softly, carry an insurmountable stick, and never forget what you are protecting. Among the stars, humanity finally walked in the light, not as conquerors but as guardians, not as predators but as protectors. They had hidden for 300 years, watching and learning and building. Now they used what they had built to make the galaxy a little less dangerous, a little less cruel. It was not a perfect galaxy. Wars still happened. Species still fought and died over resources and territory. But somewhere in the darkness, there was a small blue world where a patient species waited and watched, ready to act if necessary, hoping they would never have to. And the galaxy, slowly but surely, began to change. Ambassador gave her final speech as Earth's first diplomat to the galactic community. She stood before representatives of over 200 species, in a great hall built on a world that had been freed from slavery. "We did not ask for this power," she said. "We did not seek it out. We built it because we were afraid, because we saw what the galaxy did to the weak. But now that we have it, we face a choice. We can use our strength to dominate, as others have done before us, or we can use it to protect, to defend, to give others the freedom we have always wanted for ourselves." She looked out at the assembly, at the dozens of species who had come to hear her words. "We choose protection. We choose freedom. We choose to be the kind of civilization we wished had existed when we first looked up at the stars and realized we were not alone." She smiled, and for the first time in 3 centuries, there was hope in that smile. "Welcome to the new galaxy. Let us build it together." The assembly rose and applauded, and among the stars, a new era began.